To those of you who held your nose and voted for Donald Trump, and there were many, many of you, because we heard from you and I interacted with you at restaurants, at the gym, at the ball games, you'd question my support of Trump, and I would try to explain it to you the best way I could. I don't know if you bought it or not. I'm kind of a conflicted contrarian at heart. It's pretty easy for me to get behind somebody I perceive to be a disruptor, because I think certain ecosystems need to be disrupted occasionally. I think Jefferson very profoundly said, well, the roots of liberty need the blood of a tyrant. I'm misquoting Jefferson terribly, but in essence, he believed in disruption. Yeah. So my being enamored with Trump was not that I thought he was a political genius or a generational president. I thought he was a disruptor, and I thought we needed a disruptor in the world of status quo. We needed somebody to shake the tree or turn the apple cart over, insert analogy there. And I don't regret it one bit in the world. In fact, I'm kind of more pleased than I thought I would be at his accomplishment. Now, has he done in tweets? Sure he has. And we've had shows after shows after shows commenting on some of the things we don't think are they're ill-advised. They probably shouldn't be done. But for those of you who came to the party late, you came kicking and screaming, you came holding your nose, Judge Anthony Kennedy announces his retirement yesterday. That's why you did it, period. There is about to be a process begin that will have a generational effect on this country. We're not replacing Scalia with Gorsuch. We're not replacing a liberal justice with a liberal justice. And there are no conservative justices. Let's get that straight now. There are originalist justices, people who believe in the Constitution, that as a judge, as a justice, it's their job to adhere to what the founders intended. And if you want to amend it or create policy contrary, then have at it. We're not policymakers. Well, there's 4 people on that court who do believe they're policymakers. And you look at the most recent, how in the world? We've got 2 recent 5-4 decisions. One, the travel ban, and one, the public sector union deal. The Janus case is how it's referred to. How in the world can those 4 people rationalize their decision? We went into great detail about the travel ban. The president, per the Immigration Act, the president has clear, broad discretion on immigration and national security. And the liberal justices said, well, we don't like the president. It's not the law that we disagree with. We just don't like the president. Well, folks, what if we had 5 of those? Think of this. Well, what if you woke up today and Justice Kennedy had announced his retirement and Hillary Clinton was the president? Just imagine that for a second. You're going to have 5, not people who look at their job as adhering and implementing and paying tribute to the Constitution. You're going to have people who just interpret it any way they want to on any day in which they choose. I was looking at the public sector case, this Janus case. The arguments the liberals make is unbelievable to me. But I want to conclude, and then I'll let you get to your point. To the person who thought the red hat was silly, to the person who thought Jeb Bush was a far superior candidate, or Marco Rubio had the credentials to be a president, or John Kasich was more pragmatic, and that's what the process needed, was a pragmatist. But you didn't stay home. You didn't stay home, and you didn't stay home because there were a couple of things you had in common with Donald Trump. And I go to tax cuts and the Supreme Court. And if you really break it down, Donald Trump is president today, not because of the people that wore the red hats. There weren't enough of us. There weren't enough Trumpsters to get him elected. It took a lot of people who believed Ted Cruz or Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio, but they were so afraid of her and the potential damage she could do to the country. They showed up that Tuesday. They voted. They may have held their nose. They may have closed their eyes. They may have gone to confession and asked for forgiveness. They may have hid from their pastor in the vestibule. And I don't know how you did it or why you did it or when you did it, but thank you for doing it, because today is a monumental moment in our generation of American politics, because we are on the precipice of replacing the swing vote on the United States Supreme Court. And Jeffrey Toobin was distraught yesterday about the realities of Roe v. Wade, the realities of affirmative action, racial quotas, LGBTQTAYCY.
Marriage rights.
Yeah, the marriage rights. I mean, Kennedy's been on our team more than he's not. But he's been that swing vote. And Roe v. Wade, the death penalty, gay marriage, he was on the other side. And I'm not saying we're going to do away with gay marriage. I'm not saying we're going to do away with affirmative action. I'm not saying we're going to do away with racial quotas. I'm not saying we're going to do away with abortion. But there will be a revisiting of these issues. And I'll make a prediction. In at least 15 states in America, 2 years from today, there will be a different perspective on abortion. I sincerely believe that. I don't believe Roe v. Wade will be overturned. I do believe that a lot of the authority will be re-implemented in state governments. The states will decide the abortion laws they can live with. And right now, it's a federal edict. I mean, it's a federal legislation that's been ruled on by the Supreme Court. All 50 states look at abortion the same way. Now, there's some variances within the minutia of legislation, but philosophically, the nation kind of abides by Roe v. Wade. It is the law of the land. If we get an originalist, which I think we will, and I think the list that Trump has at his avail, or the list he picked Gorsuch from, there's nobody on that list that scares me about, some of the issues that Kennedy has been the swing vote on. That's a big deal. That's a huge moment in American politics. Very seldom do we replace the swing vote. Once again, Scalia, Gorsuch. I mean, I'm not saying they're one of the same.
But think if she had been elected, she already would have replaced Scalia with most likely a liberal judge.
And for the next 40 years, we have a liberal Supreme Court. I mean, for the next and what Trump's doing, and I think Trump's not a dummy. He's picking judges that are 44, 45, 46, 48 years old, that stay there 30, 35, even 40 years if you want to stay as long as Ginsburg. And she's 85. I mean, she's 85 years old. He potentially appoints 3, maybe 4. I think Stephen Breyer's 80 or 81.
Wow.
And you get, and look, I understand the back and forth. I understand the originalist and those who believe the Constitution is to be interpreted in a different sort of way, in a different sort of time, in a different sort of day. I still believe the Constitution has an amending process that is difficult for a reason. It's real difficult to amend the Constitution because it should be real difficult. But when you look at the legacy of Trump, it's not the red hat, it's not the rallies. Those are the optics, the theatrics, the stuff that we have a lot of fun with on the radio. But you are now experiencing the most profound example of why your vote mattered and why it counted, because we are about to turn this court into a solid originalist court. And that, my friends, in my humble opinion, is in this country's best interest. And when you look at Roe v. Wade and you look at the number of abortions that have happened in America since the passing of the approving, the execution of Roe v. Wade, there's a different day in America today. And I'm not saying we're going to abolish everything that Kennedy, because like I said, capital punishment, he was kind of conflicted on. Gay marriage, I mean, he was the swing vote that allowed for marriage to be redefined, not between one man and one woman. And he explains it in a real profound way. I mean, he's an intellectual justice. But you're about to witness the Trump effect on steroids, because this Donald Trump, however crazy he may be, and however you may find his approach, Donald Trump is about to have as profound an impact on this country we live in as any president has in 40 or 50 years. Because once again, Rev, this is the swing vote on the Supreme Court. And if that rests in the hands of an originalist, it's over. I mean, the four can vote the way the four want to vote. They can interpret it the way they want to interpret it. They can make it up the way they want to make it up, because on these two most recent decisions, that's what they've done. That's exactly what they've done. There is no sound legal footing to argue against the travel ban. I mean, I want to read this again because we've got some people joining the show that weren't here earlier. When you look at the travel ban, it's a 5-4 vote, and you really wonder how in the world 4 can get to where they got. But here is what Congress passed in the Immigration and Nationality Act. Here's what they passed. And I'm going to read it verbatim because I don't think the language could be any more clear. I can't comment or give narrative on the way it reads. This is the federal statute that they were debating in the Supreme Court. And this is whether or not Trump can place a travel ban on countries that he perceived to be a threat. Now, I mean, the media went hysterical, says it's a Muslim. It's not a Muslim ban. I mean, it only bans about 2% of all the Muslim population in the world. It's not a Muslim ban. That's craziness. I mean, that's the media doing what the media does. But I believe we've conditioned our listeners. We don't pay much attention to those people anyway. They frustrate us. They aggravate us. They make us mad, but we don't pay them much attention anyway. But here's how the statute reads. Whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interest of the United States, he may, by proclamation and for such period as he deemed necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restriction he, the president, may deem appropriate. That's what the statute says. That's federal legislation. Instead, the 4 justices, that if she were the president, would have been 5 justices, would argue that the policy is unwise. It's ineffective. It's overreaching. It's broad. It's overbroad. You can't allow the courts to make judgments about what is fundamentally a foreign policy and national security issue. That's the president's job. But 4 judges that would have been 5 judges and may turn into 6 judges would have ruled not on the statute, not on the legalities. They would have ruled on their personal opinions of Donald Trump. And that is a ridiculous tack to take. There is no logical way to rationalize that. But that's what they wanted the court to be. They want the court to be a political body, a political apparatus. Now, it is political because presidents make appointments. You know, Kennedy was a Reagan pick. He wasn't quite as conservative as we thought he would be during his time on the court. But he was always kind of the swing votes. Well, that's why this is a monumental decision. And we'll get to the public sector union decision, the Janus decision here. But I want to go back, and we'll take a break. I want to go back to those of you who ain't crazy about Trump. There's a lot of you. You tell me a lot that you're not real crazy about Trump. Here's why it was worth it on that Tuesday nearly 2 years ago to go pull the lever, mash the button, and vote against her and for him, because we knew there was at least one Supreme Court justice at stake. Now there's 2, and it's not just a second. It's the swing vote on the U.S. Supreme Court. Liberals, you're having a bad day. I'm sorry. I'm really not. Back in a minute. Good morning, PD Live 95.